Welcome to Tech Unplugged. Today we're diving deep into, well, a really fascinating area where artificial intelligence meets our everyday lives. We'll be looking especially at how it's reshaping entertainment and what that means for all of us. Our goal is to really unpack this, give you a clear picture of what's actually going on under the surface.
Yeah, it's a huge topic. We'll kick things off by looking at AI ethics,
Mm-hmm.
sort of the groundwork. Why thinking about ethics isn't just a nice to have, but actually fundamental, especially media.
Right, not just an afterthought.
Exactly. It needs to be part of the mindset from the very beginning, from design, data collection, all the way to deployment.
And then we'll get into the more tangible stuff, like how a platform like Netflix uses AI, specifically machine learning, to, figure out what you want to watch.
We'll touch on transparency too, and the big issue of bias in these systems. There are real-world examples where things have gone wrong.
Okay, so let's start with those ethics. You said it's a mindset.
It really is. It covers everything. Ethical intent in the design, respecting privacy, making sure data represents everyone, not just certain groups.
So addressing biases, like racial bias, gender bias.
All of those. And it goes into who's building these things, the importance of having diverse teams. Plus, transparency. Can we understand why the AI made a decision? And ultimately, is it being used for good?
It sounds like a lot more than just ticking boxes on a compliance form.
Oh, definitely. It's an evolving ecosystem. Practices, systems, goals. It really has to be baked into how an organization thinks, particularly in media where they have such influence.
And you mentioned things can go wrong. What happens when AI fails?
Well, you've got this mix, sometimes corporate hype pushing for quick result, AI methods that are still, frankly, quite new, data that's incomplete or biased, and the pressure to get a product out the door. It's fertile ground for failure.
And failure isn't just a technical glitch, is it? There are real human costs.
Absolutely. When AI is making decisions about things like policing or hiring or even what content gets recommended to you, the impact can be significant. And think about synthetic conversations, chatbots.
Yeah, or personalization gone wrong.
Exactly. And regulators are catching on. Look at the EU's Digital Markets Act. Ethical requirements and data privacy are becoming much stricter legally.
Are there specific examples of companies getting into trouble over this?
Sure. IBM faced legal action in Los Angeles over how user data was allegedly misused in a weather app.
Oh, wow.
And Goldman Sachs was investigated for potential gender discrimination in how their algorithm approved credit card applications.
So messing this up is expensive.
Very, not just reputation and legal fees, but the real-world harm. Remember the self-driving Uber incident? The car didn't recognize a jaywalking pedestrian because its model hadn't been trained sufficiently on that specific scenario. Tragically, someone died.
That's sobering. It highlights the stakes.
It really does. Failing to train models properly has consequences.
So how does this apply specifically to media and entertainment? They seem like a special case.
In many ways, they are. The media industry is a tech industry now, right? They've always blended creativity with technology.
True, for a long time.
But they also hold this unique societal role. They're the mass distributors of stories, of narratives, of social norms. So ethical AI practices become even more critical there.
Because what they show us or recommend to us shapes our views.
Precisely. And interestingly, the technical standards and the ethical standards often overlap. Bias in data isn't just ethically wrong, it's a model killer. It makes the AI perform badly.
So good ethics is actually good engineering in a way.
Often, yes. And those black box algorithms where you can't see why a decision was made, they can hide serious biases.
Which goes back to needing diverse teams, I suppose. People with different perspectives looking at the system.
Crucial, not just for finding biases, but for better performance overall. It broadens the view to consider the societal impact, not just the technical task. The goal is ethical, trustworthy AI that supports creativity and gives users great, personalized experiences.
So transparency is key then, making these systems less of a black box.
The whole AI development chain needs to be ideally secure, transparent, explainable, and auditable.
That sounds like a tall order.
It is, especially with complex models like deep neural networks. Auditing them is hard. But it's an audit problem, not necessarily an excuse to avoid transparency altogether.
So we need more openness about the process.
Yes, and humility. Companies need to communicate openly to regulators, to executives, to the public about the journey towards ethical AI. It's complex, it's ongoing.
And it needs collaboration across different parts of a company, right? Not just the data scientist.
Absolutely. Product managers, legal teams, compliance, data scientists, they all need to be involved. Ethics can't be siloed in one department.
What about convincing the higher-ups? Is there always a clear return on investment for ethics?
That's a tough one. It's vital to educate senior stakeholders that AI, especially ethical AI development, is often experimental. You can't always predict a clear, certain ROI like you might for other investments. It requires a different kind of commitment.
Okay, let's dig into bias more. How do you actively fight it in the data and the models?
Well, one big thing is watching out for feedback loops. That's where a bias model recommends certain things, users interact with those things, and that interaction data feeds back into the model, reinforcing the original bias.
Ah, like a vicious cycle.
Exactly. So you need to actively work to mitigate that and fundamentally use representative data sets. Make sure your data reflects the diversity of the population in terms of gender, race, culture, and so on.
It's just good statistics, really,
Yeah,
as well as being ethical.
it is. Sample bias is a huge cause of poor outcomes. The classic example is facial recognition performing worse on darker skin tones and for women, because the training data was overwhelmingly skewed towards lighter-skinned males. The gender shade study really highlighted this.
So the data scientists need to understand more than just the algorithms.
Definitely. They need a deep understanding of the problem they're modeling, the system they're working within, including its potential inherent biases, especially when you're modeling complex human behavior like audience decisions.
Because how people behave online differs, right? Liking something on Facebook isn't the same as writing a Reddit comment.
Exactly. And those behaviors can vary across demographics. Models generalize based on the data they see, so understanding those social, cultural, behavioral nuances and how data is collected is critical.
And the team's own biases can play a role too. Confirmation bias.
Yes, which is another reason why diverse teams and collective approaches, checks and balances are so important.
Are there tools to help with this, to understand what the models are actually doing?
Yes, thankfully. Tools for model interpretability are emerging. Things like AWS SageMaker has an explainability feature using something called SHAP values. Microsoft has InterpretML. Google's AutoML provides feature scoring.
What do these tools actually show you?
They help reveal the hierarchy of variables within a model, so you can see how much factors like, say, gender or location or viewing history are influencing a prediction. It helps surface potential biases.
Okay.
There are others too, like LIME, EII5, Google's What If tool. They offer different ways to poke at the model, understand feature importance, and see how it performs for different groups or scenarios.
So we're moving towards maybe model transparency 1.0.
That's a good way to put it. It's a start, a necessary step.
All right, let's pivot specifically to Netflix now. We all use it or know someone who does. Their success is huge.
Undeniably. Massive content library, super user-friendly interface, but AI is really the secret sauce, isn't it?
The recommendations, yeah, that's the most obvious part. Suggesting things you might actually want to watch.
And it's powered by those AI algorithms analyzing mountains of user data. They were early adopters, really showing how powerful this could be in entertainment.
And it's becoming widespread, right? You mentioned something like 80% of companies using AI.
By 2025, that's the estimate, yeah. Enterprises using some form of AI. Netflix is a prime example of leveraging it effectively in their sector.
And the whole shift to streaming itself was revolutionary. Getting content instantly versus waiting for a DVD.
Completely changed consumption habits. That real-time access paved the way for this level of personalization. The DVD industry basically vanished.
And now the streaming market is incredibly crowded. Everyone's fighting for subscribers.
Which makes differentiation key. Exclusive content is one way, but sophisticated recommendation systems are another huge battleground.
How does Netflix actually make those recommendations? What are the techniques?
They use a few main approaches. There's content-based filtering that looks at the content you've liked before, genres, actors, etc., and suggests similar stuff.
Okay, makes sense.
Then there's collaborative filtering. This one looks at users who have similar tastes to you. If people like you liked a certain movie, the system guesses you might too.
Ah, the people who watched this also watched Idea.
Pretty much. And often, they use hybrid approaches, combining both content and collaborative signals for, hopefully, better results.
How do they know if a recommendation is actually good?
That's interesting because you can measure it technically. Did the algorithm rank relevant items highly? That's system-centric. But you also need user-centric measures. Did the user actually like the suggestion? Did they click on it? Watch it.
And those two don't always align, I guess.
Sometimes they don't. A technically perfect recommendation might just not hit the spot for you right then. which leads to the importance of the user interface. How is this stuff presented?
Right, the UI. You mentioned design nudging earlier.
Yeah, the idea that the way choices are presented influences what we pick. Think about making something the default option, opt-out versus opt-in,
Hmm.
or even how categories are ordered.
So the designers are kind of like choice architects.
Increasingly, yes. They're shaping the environment in which we make decisions on the platform.
So what does the research say about how we actually use Netflix and respond to these recommendations?
Studies show a lot of us browse without something specific in mind. We're open to suggestions, and usually we find something. But attention spans can be short. If nothing grabs us quickly, we might just leave.
Does the personalization generally work for people?
It seems so. One survey found around 80% of users often see movies and shows on their homepage that feel related to what they've watched before.
What influences our choices most? Is it just the algorithm?
Not entirely. Thumbnails are apparently a huge factor. What image do they use for the show?
Oh, interesting.
Also, recommendations from friends and family are still really powerful.
Yeah.
And even the specific actors shown in the thumbnails can make a difference.
And people are okay with Netflix changing those thumbnails based on what they think will appeal to me specifically.
Seems like a majority are, yes. They appreciate the effort to make content look more appealing to their tastes.
But it's not perfect. Are there common frustrations?
Yeah, some things come up. That top choices for you category, you'd think it would be front and center, but some users actually struggle to find it. And the order of the rows on the landing page can change. That inconsistency can apparently be confusing or annoying for some people. They expect things to be in the same place.
I can see that. You get used to scrolling down to a certain spot.
Right. And people do tend to gravitate towards things others are talking about, so those popular lists or things friends recommended carry a lot of weight.
Is there a feeling the recommendations can be too narrow sometimes?
Some users feel that way, yeah. Like the top lists might be dominated by, say, local content, like Swedish content in one study, and it makes it harder to discover international or less mainstream options.
So maybe some standard categories should always be easy to find.
That's a common suggestion. Things like continue watching, top 10, and maybe top choices for you. Keeping those consistently near the top could improve the experience.
Okay, let's peek behind the curtain. How does Netflix actually run all this stuff? The tech side.
It's pretty sophisticated. They use what's called a microservices architecture. Basically, the whole system is broken down into lots of smaller, independent services that talk to each other.
Easier to manage and update, I suppose.
Exactly. And they rely heavily on cloud infrastructure, primarily Amazon Web Services AWS, for a lot of the back-end heavy lifting. Content onboarding, processing it, distributing it globally, managing all the traffic.
And there's something called ZULL.
Yeah, ZUL acts as a gateway. Think of it as the front door for requests coming into the Netflix system. It handles routing traffic dynamically, monitoring system health, providing resilience if something fails, and security.
But what about all the data flying around in real time? Clicks, plays, searches.
They use tools for that. Tripwire mentioned for collecting those online events. Then Kafka acts like a central pipeline, moving that data around efficiently. Apache Samba helps process it. The data ends up in storage like S3 or databases like Elasticsearch for analysis.
And there's a fact store called Axion.
Right. Axion holds key information about members and videos, the facts. The machine learning platform interacts with Axion to get the data it needs to generate those personalized recommendations.
So apps fetch data from Axion, generate features. What are features?
Features are specific data points the model uses. Like, has this user watched sci-fi before? How recently did they watch a comedy? What actors are in this movie? The apps calculate these features and then score the ML models to predict how likely you are to watch something.
And these features need to be updated.
Constantly, they use offline processes, often running on Spark, to refresh these feature values based on the latest user activity. This keeps the recommendations relevant.
For processing data streams as they happen, they use Apache Flink.
Yes, Flink is big for real-time stream processing. It allows them to analyze data on the fly. And crucially, they've built validation frameworks on top of Flink to ensure data correctness and availability. Flink also helps manage back pressure, basically, preventing the system from getting overwhelmed if data comes in too fast.
It's not just recommendations, though, right? Machine learning is used elsewhere.
Oh yeah, fraud and abuse detection is another big one. Analyzing login patterns, device usage, they can flag accounts showing suspicious activity, like simultaneous access from wildly different locations.
They also have internal tools to help their AI teams work faster, MetaBoost and Metaflow configs.
Right. These help streamline the MLOps process machine learning operations. MetaBoost helps scale experiments, letting teams easily test models trained on different target metrics. Metaflow configs make it easier to configure ML workflows and deploy them to production without lots of manual packaging.
It sounds like they're really systematizing their AI development.
Very much so. It's essential at their scale.
And this extends even to Netflix games.
Apparently so. They use state machine modeling, basically mapping out player journeys to understand engagement, simulate future trends, and see if they're meeting their goals for monthly active accounts.
Even production budgeting. AI helps estimate costs for new shows.
Yeah, by analyzing historical spending data on similar productions, machine learning models can help predict spending patterns for new projects, making budgeting more accurate.
With all these complex systems feeding into each other, testing must be paramount.
Absolutely critical. They use load testing tools like Locust to simulate heavy user traffic, plus rigorous unit tests and integration tests to make sure individual components in the whole system work correctly. Errors in these real-time analysis tools would be seen directly by users, so accuracy is vital.
And it sounds like the data science and engineering teams need to work hand in glove.
Collaboration and clear deployment paths are essential. You can build a great model, but integrating it smoothly into the live production environment is a whole other challenge.
Looking forward, what's next for AI at Netflix? I hear generative AI is on their radar.
Yes, reports suggest they've been building an internal platform to explore generative AI applications across the company.
Like what, potentially?
They're exploring large language models, LLMs, for things like live captioning and localization, making content accessible in more languages more quickly. That could really enhance their global reach.
What about using AI in content production itself?
They're investigating that too, but the focus seems to be on enhancing quality and augmenting human creativity, rather than, say, replacing writers or directors. Using AI is a tool for creators.
And they're mindful of the ethical side of these new developments.
They seem to be. They're reportedly looking at initiatives from the public sector, like online registries of algorithms used by cities like Helsinki and Amsterdam, and frameworks like Google's model cards, which provide transparency about how a model works and its limitations.
Okay, let's zoom out a bit. These large language models, LLMs like GPT-3 and others, they seem to be everywhere now.
They've definitely moved beyond just research labs. Major companies are investing heavily. Microsoft's partnership with OpenAI is a huge example.
But they come with challenges, right?
Big ones. Training these models requires enormous computational power and energy. GPT-3's training, for instance, had a significant carbon footprint.
And data privacy. They're trained on massive data sets.
That's a major concern, especially if they're used in sensitive areas. Where did all that data come from? Is personal information embedded in there? Security is paramount?
Plus the potential for misuse, generating fake news, things like that.
A huge societal risk. The ability to generate convincing but false text at scale is worrying.
Are governments trying to get a handle on this?
Yes, there's definitely regulatory movement. The U.S. has the National AI Initiative Act. The EU is working on its Comprehensive Artificial Intelligence Act. They're trying to set guardrails.
But LLMs are also improving things. Search engines, personalization.
Absolutely. Reports suggest Bing saw increased user satisfaction after integrating LLM capabilities. And personalization across e-commerce, social media, and streaming platforms is getting even more sophisticated.
Any numbers on that for platforms like Netflix or Pinterest?
There are reports, though, always take specific numbers with a grain of salt, suggesting Netflix saw maybe a 5% increase in user retention and 10% more viewing time by leveraging LLMs and recommendations. Pinterest also reported significant boosts in user engagement and click-through rates.
So the potential benefits are real, but infrastructure needs to keep up.
Definitely. Scalability and energy efficiency are big hurdles to deploying these models widely.
And that fake news issue is a serious concern for trust in information.
A major one. If LLMs proliferate misinformation, it could erode trust in news sources and institutions.
So what are the main government and regulatory worries around LLMs?
It's a few things. Strong data protection laws are needed. There's a push for collaboration between governments, researchers, and industry. Clear guidelines for responsible use are essential. And then there's the potential impact on jobs. Addressing labor displacement is also on their radar.
Wow, okay.
Yeah.
That's a lot to take in. So let's try to sort of wrap our heads around
Yeah,
this.
it's a rapidly changing landscape.
We've seen how AI offers these incredible possibilities for personalization, efficiency. Netflix is a prime example of harnessing machine learning really effectively.
Definitely. But as we've discussed, these advancements bring significant ethical responsibilities, challenges around bias, transparency, potential misuse. These aren't just entertainment industry problems, they're much broader.
And it feels like the intersection is where it gets really critical, these powerful AI tools meeting the huge influence of media platforms.
Exactly. That convergence underlines why we need this ongoing dialogue, proactive measures to make sure AI develops in ways that align with human values and, societal well-being.
It's not a one and done thing, is it? This journey towards ethical AI.
Not at all. It requires constant vigilance, collaboration, and a real commitment to understanding both the tech details and the human impact.
So for you listening, what's the takeaway? Understanding these forces helps you be a more informed consumer, right? More discerning about the tech and media you use.
I think so. It prompts us to think about the systems shaping our choices and the ethics or lack thereof guiding their development.
Yeah, it shows the future of tech isn't just about faster algorithms or more data. It's about the values we choose to embed in them and the kind of world that creates.
Well said.
All right, that brings us to the end of this deep dive. Thanks for listening to Tech Unplugged. Stay tuned for more explorations into the ever-evolving landscape of technology.